Hello everybody, happy Science Sunday. Today we are going to be studying science. I thought science was kind of boring. It can be kind of boring sometimes, but also, I gotta admit, it's a little interesting. It's a little gross though. Ugh. Bacteria. Monera. The Kingdom of Monera. What is this? So, according to this book, 9th grade biology that we're reading, Apologia, check it out. They make it as interesting as they can. It actually is, they do make it pretty interesting. They say that all of the organisms in Kingdom Monera, which is mostly bacteria pretty much, you can't even see them, but if you were to gather it all together, they would be like heavier than all of the other organisms combined on the planet. That's kind of creepy. And the bacteria that's living in us is more than the cells in our bodies, apparently. Like greater mass or something, which is gross. And also, you measure a bacterium, the singular, with an I don't know what it's called. U-M, it looks like a U. It's a U with a little thing. A bacterium is about the size of 2 ums. And an is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. So, if that's helpful. That was really helped me see. No, they said 1,000 bacteria would be like the dot on an I in this book. Like, take the I on this book. The dot is 1,000 bacteria would fit in that dot. Okay, but apparently there's so many that if you gather them all together, it would still be heavier than everything else on Earth. All the other living organisms on Earth. Including elephants and dinosaurs, maybe? I don't know. That's crazy. But there's just not as many dinosaurs as bacteria, which is weird. But we got different types of bacteria. Turns out, not all bacteria is gross. Well, they are, but you can't see them, which is helpful. Pathogens are the ones that cause harm, but there's bacteria that doesn't cause harm. There's bacteria that helps you make milk and helps you with your, what did it say, your teeth or something? Oh, it helps you synthesize B and K, vitamin B and K. Like, there's so many vitamins, vitamin B, D3, 4, 8, 9, Z12, and then there's all the numbers in B, different types of vitamin D. I don't know how people keep track of all those, and you're supposed to have them all together, but if you have the wrong ratio, that's bad, not too much, but you gotta make sure you have mixed vitamin B with vitamin K, and bacteria that helps you do it. Why? Why does that have to be so confusing? But I think the reason why is just because God wanted to make it really complicated so that we see what he's able to do, which is kind of cool. But then it's like, why do we have things like pathogens? Why do we have the gross ones? And that's because of sin, obviously. Suffering. Suffering is our fault. But, okay. In a bacteria, it's the most simple cell. It's literally just one cell, I'm pretty sure. And it's the most simple. It's just like a wall, capsule thingy with a membrane thing that helps decide how many chemicals go in and out. And it's got a little DNA, and then it's got some other stuff, chemicals, that help it. And then it's got a little tail. Some of them have a little tail that helps them move. They said the tail on the bacterium is more complicated than a motor that men have made, that man-made motors that they spent 3,000 years making, is still less complicated than the motor on a little bacterium thingy, whatever you call it. And they call it like a flagellum or something. And you know what's crazy? Is that's the simplest life form. And it's still super complicated. And it's still like everywhere, which is kind of gross. But I mean, that just shows you God. Because we tried to make motors with our brains, and it took us thousands and thousands of years. Not me, I didn't help at all, but then God just comes along and he's like, by the way, the simplest life form that I made has like a way more complicated motor. It's like a little tail thingy on the bacterium that hooks with a hook, and then it moves the something that creates a chemical reaction that propels it or something. It's so weird. Why? Why is it so confusing? There's different shapes of bacteria. There's the circular ones, there's the long ones, there's the spindly ones called spherical, rod-shaped, called bacillus, and then helical, called spirillum. I don't know. That's too confusing. And then the way they eat and the way they, okay, so some of them eat off of, some of them are, you know how there's producers, consumers, and decomposers. Decomposers are good for the earth, they say, because they eat the dead animals, the dead organisms, which have nutrients that need to be used for the living organisms. So if it weren't for the decomposers decomposing it and bringing the nutrients back into the earth, in the air or the water or whatever, then all of the nutrients would be trapped in the dead animals and we would just rot. So decomposers are good. Obviously producers are good because they make their own food and then they let off. So some of the bacteria is producers. They use photosynthesis, but they don't produce oxygen like plants do. So apparently there's photosynthesis that doesn't produce oxygen. Why? But it produces something else that other organisms need. And then some of them use like chemical synthesis, chemosynthesis, synthetic whatever. And they use certain chemicals, something blah, blah, blah. Confusing, but it helps produce for the earth. And then there's the decomposers, which is also helpful. And there's Arabic, not Arabic, organisms that need oxygen. And then there's anaerobic, whatever. Why does it have to be so hard to say? Anaerobic. Those ones don't need oxygen, which is what I think I think all bacteria are, pretty sure. But, you know what's weird is what about the consumers? Those are the parasites that feed off of living organisms. Gross. And also humans are technically parasites because we live off of living organisms too. Well, we live off of dead ones. We kill them first. So, but they have to be living and then we kill them and then eat them. But here's the thing, what's the point of that? What's the point of parasites? Because you don't want you don't want overpopulation, except for humans. There's no such thing as overpopulation for humans because the earth was made for humans. So get that in your brain. If we have billions and billions and trillions of people, that's good because that means the earth is doing its job by supporting us because we're the best as humans. And yeah, we're parasites, but it's made for us. And the parasites are also good because you don't want overpopulation of other organisms. So it kills off those people. Not people. No, we don't want people to die. They tried to make a little world in Arizona, apparently, Biosphere 2, and it didn't work. It lasted for like 2 years, which is actually pretty impressive. Better than I could do. But they forgot about bacteria, how important bacteria is to the world, which I would have forgotten that too, because it's like, how is that helpful at all? They don't seem very helpful, but apparently they are. They just had plants and animals. And then they ran out of oxygen because they didn't have bacteria, which I didn't know bacteria produced oxygen, but I think bacteria helps the other plants which help produce oxygen somehow. It's all connected. It's kind of crazy how connected everything is. And I think God just did that just to show you how amazing he is. And like whenever we try to do something similar, it's like not very good. We don't ever do a good job. Even the best of scientists, which someday I'll be. Someday I'll be able to like, not be like God level, but I'll be like, I could maybe create my own world and make it last for like 50 years, a lifetime. It would be kind of cool, but it would be like the best we could possibly do by studying 9th grade biology. I'll get there someday. Okay, then there's reproduction. They all do it asexually, so they just do it on their own, which is really gross. They're just beep, copy their own DNA, copy it, loop it, and then it comes out of them or something, and then a different bacterium grows, which is exactly the same as the parent. That's weird. So there's like no male, female in bacteria. I don't think they're just little things that, imagine, oh, that'd be weird if you could just scan yourself, copy, clone, beep, beep, beep. But you know what's really gross? Okay, why do they reproduce? And they can reproduce billions. They said in 20 minutes, they can make one in 20 minutes. You know how long it takes a human to reproduce? More than 20 minutes. I don't know. 9 months or something. Something like that. 10 months, they say. Depending on how much I don't know. But, and then like elephants need like 400 days or something, which I think is more, that's more than a year. That's like 2 years. But bacteria needs 20 minutes, which means in 10 hours, they would produce billions. And if they did it for a week, it says, if this continued for a whole week, the bacteria formed from the first single bacterium would have a combined weight that is larger than the entire planet. Gross. But that would never happen because the reason they reproduce is when they find like a dead cow or a dead organism and they start reproducing super duper fast, exponential. And then they start dying off because they start eating each other. That's disgusting. That's why we're better than bacteria, because for the most part, we try not to eat each other. And then they run out of cow and dead organism, and then they go down. But apparently they don't all die. Like, there's still enough around to, like, I don't know, do they float to the next dead organism? But they need, so they're just, bacteria is just going like this. They reproduce really fast, and then they die really fast. Gross. And they eat each other. But so imagine you copy yourself for no reason, just because you can. And then you run out of food and you're like, I'm going to eat myself now. Or they ate you. Huh. That's weird. Ugh, I don't like them. I'd never liked bacteria. I've always been like, why do they get their own kingdom? They're super special, even though they're gross and like below us. They're literally below us. But I should be careful because they are part of life. They are part of the ecosystem. We do need them, so maybe I should be a little nicer. Sorry, bacteria, I'm a little mean. I just think that's a little gross, okay? I wouldn't do that. But we're a little different. We have a different world than you guys. I don't think they can hear me. But if they could, and if they could understand, that's what I would say. So that's their reproduction. And then there's another conjunction thing that they do, where if one of them has good DNA, which, how are they all different? Like, if they've always asexually reproduced and they've been exact clones, how could anyone have better DNA? But I think that's because of a mutation. Mutations usually make it worse. So the ones with the better DNA can transfer through plasmid, is what it's called. A little extra DNA. They can transmit it to another one. But that's not reproducing. They're just giving another one good DNA. Why, though? Like, what would compel? They said it's always the donor of the good DNA to the bad one that initiates the conjugation, that's what it's called, where they pass the good DNA. And I'm like, why would they do that? Like, that, what compels a bacterium to be so kind and just want to share its good DNA? For the sake of the kingdom, for the sake of the world. It's actually kind of nice. But they do that out of the goodness of their heart. They said they don't know what compels the bacterium to do that. But we appreciate it. We appreciate that they do that, I guess. And, yeah. Was there anything else important? I think that was pretty much most of it. But, yeah, so bacteria is a little weird, but I need to be more grateful to them, I think. I think that's my moral of the story. I've been kind of mad at them for a little bit, but I'm realizing really how amazing it is, because they say there's bacteria that doesn't need oxygen, so they're in the murky waters and all the swamps and stuff. And then there's some that help with making cheese, some that help with killing off populations that are too big. And then they help with the dead animals. They help reproduce new chemicals for other organisms that help reproduce oxygen for us, blah, blah, blah. And it's super complicated. And most of life is supported by bacteria. So, as gross as they are, we need them. So thank your local bacteria. Just, if you see bacteria anywhere, just be like, thank you for doing your job. There's so many different kinds of bacteria, and they all do their job, which is kind of the moral of the story that they were trying to teach in this book, is like, we should be grateful to them. God made it for a reason. So, again, thank your local bacteria for all the work that they do for you.